news. Let's discuss this with Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. He's a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Good morning, Congressman.
Morning. How are you?
I'm well. So this bipartisan group wants President Trump to be more forceful in confronting Saudi Arabia and the Crown Prince there. What do you want to see happen?
Well, I certainly want to see answers to this. If it is what it appears, a murder by an assassination squad, on Saudi property, theoretically, in Turkey by Saudi Arabia, of a journalist for the Washington Post, it's disgusting, and especially if the accusation of killing, dismembering his body, there needs to be some consequences, and I think this should be investigated, and I frankly think you will see us investigate. Now, one of my concerns is you have people on the news, some senators, some congressmen, jumping right to the conclusion of, in essence, saying, let's cut off all relations with Saudi Arabia. And that's got very, very big impact to it. And it's something that before we jump to that level, we have to really think through. But I have no doubt that the president needs to be forceful on this. And frankly, if the proof is what it appears to be, there needs to be targeted sanctions on individuals in Saudi Arabia and other consequences that the administration knows more about probably than I do.
Do you agree with Senator Rand Paul that the administration should cut off immediately arms sales to Saudi Arabia?
No, I mean, Rand Paul's been pining for the administration to cut off arms sales to Saudi Arabia since the beginning of his Senate career. He actually has been pining for put out a budget to cut the military by 20 or 30% and wants to get U.S. troops out everywhere around the world. So I think while he's probably legitimately concerned about that, I'm not questioning that motivation, but it has always been his hope that the United States basically extract itself from everywhere around the world. That's a legitimate viewpoint. You can agree with it or disagree, but I think an immediate freezing or cutting off of all arms sales has implications that go far beyond what we can imagine. Also, keep in mind, there are 500,000 dead Syrians right now because of Bashar al-Assad, because of the Iranian regime, and because of the Russians. There are people killed every day by barrel bombs, and there need to be and need to continue to be significant consequences to those atrocities as well.
Look, it's very complicated geopolitically. I mean, obviously, between what's happening with U.S. Green Berets helping Saudi forces fight the Houthi rebels in Yemen. This is obviously not easy stuff, but the president seems to be fixated on what he says is the $110 billion that the U.S. will be getting from arms sales to Saudi Arabia. That number, by the way, has been called into question. The Washington Post says that is wildly inflated. It's not $110 billion, but is this about the money? Is that the calculation the president should be making?
No, I would have phrased it differently, but, this isn't the first time and probably won't be the last time I'll say that I'd have phrased something differently than the president. But I think he is right in saying we have to be cautious about this. Now, the reality is beyond the economic impact to the United States, because we shouldn't make foreign policy on that basis, but beyond that, if we don't sell arms to the Saudis, I mean, I promise you, the Chinese or the Russians will fill that vacuum, and then in 2 years, we're going to be here talking about why the Russians have such an oversized role in the Middle East now and why it was given that. And so I think it's important. These are the nuances. We have to be intense on saying murdering a journalist and dismembering is absolutely, utterly against everything we stand for. At the same time, we have to understand broader foreign policy implications. So I think finding the middle ground from basically cut off all relations with Saudi Arabia to doing nothing is going to be essential here. And the administration knows what tools they have in their pocket.
Do you think that Jared Kushner should have spent so much energy cultivating a relationship with the Crown Prince? Do you see Mohammed bin Salman as a progressive reformer?
It's hard to tell. With this incident, no, but this isn't new in Saudi Arabia. He has, though, recently given women, and it's sad that this is the 21st century and I have to say this, the right to drive in Saudi Arabia. He is moving to an economy not based on oil. So I think if Jared Kushner can cultivate a relationship, that's great. Now, that also may put him in a better position to extract something or to enact punishments against the regime or against the king and the prince, the crown prince, for what was done in Turkey. So, no, I mean, just like I'm not against the president having a relationship with Kim Jong-un to a point, I think that also applies here to a point.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, we really appreciate your perspective. Thanks so much for being on New Day.
Anytime.